Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Welcome to all of you. You know, for nearly 160 years, the federal government has published the Condition of Education Report, which is really critical to help us understand how students in schools are doing. But this year, for the first time ever, the National Center for Education Statistics missed its June 1st deadline to publish the report, which is actually required by law. This happened after the department fired almost all of the National Center for Education Statistics staff and canceled contracts that was needed to complete that work. Now all we have is a bare bones highlight document with no explanation to Congress or to the public, and that is really unacceptable. Students, families, teachers all deserve to see a full report. And this is not just about one report. NCES is also responsible for administering the National Assessment of Educational Progress, NAEP, which you referred to, Dr. Schwinn, also required by law, as you know. I have written the Secretary on this issue and not yet received an adequate response, and the department has not yet provided a promised briefing to me on NAEP. So, Dr. Schwinn, I wanted to ask you, if you're confirmed, will you ensure that NCES finally and fully and promptly produces a complete condition of education report and has the staff that it needs to carry out all of its statutory required duties, including NAEP?
Thank you for the question. If confirmed, I will absolutely ensure that we follow all of the laws that you all have passed, and certainly want to reinforce our commitment to NAEP and its full execution.
I appreciate that. Well, clearly the decimation of NCES has compromised its ability to provide the data that we in Congress and the public rely on. So I hope that you will work to see that those cuts are reversed, because we can't afford to fly blind when it comes to knowing how our students, schools, and students and our schools are doing. So I look forward to working with you on that.
Thank you, Senator.
Dr. Schwinn, the bipartisan Every Student Succeeds Act, which we wrote on this committee under Senator Alexander,
yes.
I helped write that as well with him. It requires states to identify and support their most struggling schools. But according to the GAO now, less than half of the schools that were identified for additional support have compliant improvement plans. The department has only reviewed 3 out of 5 states total so far this year with no plans for further oversight. And it's really hard to imagine that the rate of review improves because of the massive cuts we have seen across the department. So I wanted to ask you, what is your proposal to improve the department's rate of review and therefore help our nation's struggling schools and students?
Thank you for the question. I think the most important thing in your question is to say that there must be a commitment to ensuring that our most struggling schools improve, because our students deserve that. If confirmed, one of my top priorities is going to be looking at any of the departments within the Department of Education and ensuring that we know our statutory obligations, certainly to Congress, that we have the most efficient practices in place, and that we meet our obligations. And I look forward to working with you on any of those.
Would you commit to publicly reporting the department's monitoring findings and state responses so Congress and educators and students and families can see where the struggling schools are?
I would certainly want to discuss that with Secretary McMahon, but I would absolutely want to work with your office on that project. Thank you for that suggestion.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Richey, do you believe that the staff at OCR are important to protect students' civil rights?
I do, Senator.
And do you believe that every complaint must be investigated in a timely way?
I do.
Well, earlier this week, Secretary McMahon, appearing before another committee, told me that the current backlog is 2,500 cases. The department later clarified to me that it's actually 25,000 backlog. This administration has fired more than half of the staff at OCR, and President Trump is now asking in his budget to slash that by $49 million next year. So explain to me how those firings and that funding cut will help reduce that backlog. I want to understand how you're going to square that circle.
Yeah, thank you so much for that question, Senator, and the opportunity to weigh in. As you can imagine, as a nominee, I do not have access to information with regard to the decisions that are being made at the department. I'm not in communication with OCR leadership or the secretary. One of the reasons why this role is so important to me is because I am always going to advocate for OCR to have the resources that it needs to do its job. So I think that what it means is that I'm going to have to be really strategic if I'm confirmed stepping into this role, helping come up with a plan where we can address these challenges.
Okay, well, I think it's pretty clear if you have a 25,000 case backlog and you fire half the staff, cut the budget by 36%, it's going to be pretty hard to get those cases through. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.